High-powered New York civil rights attorney Sanford Rubenstein, he is, and I'm putting this politely, in hot water. He is accused of sexually assaulting a woman at a penthouse apartment last week following Rev Sharpton's 60th birthday bash. Woman reportedly works for Sharpton's National Action Network, and reports show that Sharpton is now distancing himself from his longtime collaborator, Sanford who. The victim's attorney says the police have collected dozens of bags of evidence from Rubenstein's apartment. Police even had the woman call Rubenstein after the incident, after she brought it to the attention of the NYPD, and they listened in on that conversation. Rubenstein currently representing the family of Eric Garner, who died on Staten Island over the summer after being put in a police chokehold. You remember the story. Family is filing for a lawsuit for $75 million, and some say it's only a matter of time before Rubenstein will be booted off the case altogether. All right, we're going to bring in our panel on this and a host of other subjects. Jim Kasura is criminal defense attorney in Manhattan, lecturing at New York Law School and a visiting professor at the University of Birmingham in England. Doug Von Oist, a founding partner of Karsten Von Oist, focusing on corporate misconduct and selected by the Legal 500 as one of the most influential trial lawyers in the nation. Mayo Bartlett, attorney and former chief of the Bias Crimes Unit at the Westchester County DA's office. Gentlemen, thank you. First of all, are you going to be referred the case? You want to break some news here? Are you going to be as Bias Crimes as a civil rights attorney?
I vote Mayo.
Yes.
I would happily accept.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's not a no or a yes. Okay. First off, explain to me, guys. You guys were all all worked as prosecutors. It wasn't just that the cops listened in on the conversation. Apparently, before the Daily News broke the story, they were setting up a meet between the alleged victim and Mr. Rubenstein, where they were going to, let's say, be eyes on the conversation and ears. Is that common for a story like this? Or is it just because, let's face it, Mr. Rubenstein has been the face of many cases where there has been alleged police misconduct, where he's brought the case for the plaintiffs, and he's also attached to the hip, or historically has been, with Mr. Sharpton, who again is not the top of the hit parade for the NYPD. Is it a little bit more the latter, or cops do this all the time?
You may recall the trial of the officer that was accused of rape last year.
Yep. The
young lady that he took home, they did the same thing. Like it or not, it's a common investigative tool. As long as one party is consenting, then the police are allowed to make what we call consensual phone calls between two parties. And as long as one party is consenting to them listening in on the conversation, it's a valid and often used investigative tool where you might get the person to say, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it, I this or that, or make any kind of incriminating statements.
I'm curious. This case, how much of it is not just who he is as an attorney, but also who he is associated with and how much is going on behind the scenes? We all know what's going on with the Nordlinger case here, where the boyfriend and the son make disparaging comments about cops. Nordlinger, who is the chief aide here to the First Lady in New York City, Charlene McCrae I'm talking about right now, who also the boyfriend's an ex-con, who has said a lot of horrible stuff about cops and through social media, etc. You have that case. You have the case, obviously, where Sharpton involved in a whole host of cases relating to the police. Does that filter into this at all?
It shouldn't filter into
but
it.
But does it?
Again, a lot of times you have cases like this, and if the person who's the complainant says, hey, I can get him to make that conversation, have that type of conversation on tape, it's a common investigative tool. I'm sure that there are some people in the NYPD who would be more than happy to see, the demise of Sanford, but this is the type of thing that you can expect. And sometimes these tapes yield positive information in terms of prosecution. Sometimes they exonerate the person that's being recorded, because if you have no inkling that you're being recorded and what you say contradicts the allegation, sometimes that's enough to put the case to rest where they decide not to charge.
Doug, I'm curious, do attorneys make the worst clients? He's already announced counsel here right now, but do attorneys tend to think that they know the best way to put on a case, especially when it relates to them?
I mean, you would think so. You would think that a chef would be the most critical of the food he eats because he knows the process. So I think it is difficult because you're dealing with a savvy professional. But the thing also, a lot of attorneys know that it's a very difficult job, and they know that if they're turning themselves over to a professional, somebody that's competent, somebody that they trust, hopefully it should work out.
And usually they know when to shut up. Now, I think there's another part to this that Mr. Rubenstein's obviously been a longtime associate for Reverend Sharpton. Suffice to say, if Sanford's water's getting cut off here and he's not going to be getting any more cases referred to him, there's less of an incentive if there were ever any improper financial dealings. So just so I understand the law, you can't, if I refer a case, you can't pay me, right?
That's right.
Right. So there's long been unfounded maybe, but suggestions that maybe there is a relationship where certain attorneys get certain cases that Reverend Sharpton may funnel through, and now books may be opened up here if this goes through. As attorneys, are you guys fascinated to see how that byplay might also come up here in the case? Come on.
The referral situation has been one of the oldest traditions in the legal profession there is, but usually it comes up between lawyers, and the rule is that you can get a referral fee as long as you're working on the case. But there are pretty specific prohibitions against lawyers giving referral fees to non-lawyers just to get the case. Obviously, the non-lawyer can't do anything but give you the case. So that'd be an interesting thing if it does come up. These big checks
I'm
being
fascinated by all this. All right, when we come back, everybody, Eric Garner's family, they are taking action. As he said, there'll be a $75 million lawsuit filed here. Family getting ready to take the NYPD and 6 of its officers to court, and that lawsuit is being filed against the department surrounding his death. We'll be right back to talk about that case and what we should expect to see come out.